Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. Welcome back to Nickelodeon Month. We are on day. Had to kind of structure this. We're on day 8. We're looking at a lost Nickelodeon film entitled Cry Baby Lane. Yes, it was lost, supposedly. Um, so this aired once back in the year 2000. Nickelodeon in their Snick Saturday night block. They did. He aired it for Halloween. It was hosted by Melissa Joan Hart, and then it never aired again. With, supposedly parents thought it was too scary for children to watch, and yeah, this is coming after watching this. Like, there's some episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark that are scarier than this. I don't get that at all, but it kind of just disappeared. In fact, it became somewhat of an urban legend as people were trying to find this movie for years, searching the internet, scouring, trying to find it. People, like, I have a tape of it and stuff like that. And yeah, it became this film that people just wanted to find and couldn't find it for the longest time. And supposedly it was lost or banned or something. And eventually it was found and it was uploaded to YouTube. There are a couple of versions on YouTube. The one I watched was from a re-airing, actually, because around 2011 it was found. And so then Nickelodeon decided to re-air it on their Teen Nick channel in the 90s or All of That block, and then later in the Splat. So, yeah. And, yeah, despite the fact that, for the longest time Nickelodeon was saying it didn't exist, like they were just ignoring it. And then all of a sudden, like, people finding TV spots and clips, and then the full movie, and just, it's out there now. And then Nickelodeon airing it. Like, okay, here you go, here it is. So it kind of puts into perspective, they had a copy of it the entire time, and just chose to ignore it. And was it because it was banned? I think it was because it wasn't very good, and they decided not to re-air this. And yeah. And maybe the reason why not many people knew about it is because there wasn't, like, that not very many people, recollected it, or it wasn't very well known, or ended up hidden, is because not many people watched it to begin with. I myself was a big Nickelodeon kid growing up, and I don't remember this at all. So when I was putting together the list for this, I said, I have to do this. I have to do Cry Baby Lane, and I have to, finally watch this movie. So I watched it. It's something. Not sure if it's a good something, but something. So the story here is we have Frank Langella as Ben Bennett, the mortician owner of a funeral home. And he's telling a story to these two kids. One's a teenager, one's his little brother. The names are Andrew, the younger brother, and Carl, the older brother. And he tells the story of this man whose wife gave birth to conjoined twins, but he was so horrified of them, he locked them in the attic. And then they got sick because they shared the same liver, and they both died. But before that, he realized that one of them was evil. Somehow he figured it out. And so after they died, they were cut in half. And the good one was buried in a cemetery. The bad one was buried in a field by Cry Baby Lane. So there's that. So, yes. And so, yeah. That's the story. And then they go home, and we see the Andrew has a nightmare about the Cry Baby Lane thing, which, in hindsight, could have been a vision from the good twin warning him. Now that I think about it, it could have been, warning him something was going to happen. It could be, you know, because there's some have supernatural abilities. So, but he wakes up and he tells mommy he had a nightmare and that Bennett was the one who told him, and she doesn't like him for some reason. We find out later that because of something when her mother died, that she was unpresentable. I don't know if they botched the makeup job or it looked she was unpresentable. I don't know. That's all we get. But she doesn't like him, and right away I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna like this mom character, am I? Nope, she's the worst character in the film. Well, the dad is the most irresponsible character in the film, but the mom's the worst. The mom is the worst character in this film, bar none. So, because the boys have been told of this story, they decide to bring 3 girls out to the cemetery to scare them by doing a seance by where the good twin was buried. So they do that. But in doing so, we see that he goes to hide the speaker and he cuts a root, which is important later. So they're out there with the girls and they're scaring them with the sound. And then they play rock music for some reason. It's like, oh, we gotcha, we gotcha. And then you hear the crying. Because we're told that the good twin, or the evil twin, on Crybaby Lane, cries for vengeance. Which doesn't make much sense, but when we get to the twist. However, the crying is at the good twin's grave. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I thought the crying was... And this is told to be like actual what's going on. Then there's laughing. So we're saying that the evil twin is playing a joke or something, but this is supposed to be the good twin. There's something that's not right here, we find out. And yeah. So the next day, the girls are starting to act a bit strange. We also see, I should mention that the little boy from the Haunted Mansion is here. And he's obsessed with the Lord of the Rings for some reason. Which leads to one of the stupidest things in this film. So anyway, the next day, Bennett and the groundskeeper, Gary, they're going over the grave and they find the stuff that was left there, because they all just ran off. And the dog, the groundskeeper's dog, goes crazy because it's been possessed by the evil twin. So it goes after him. It attacks Gary, but there's no injuries on him to be seen because Bennett saves him. And they get out of there. And, yeah. And then, so they're riding their bikes at night. And there's a train that comes between them. And... No, not Gary. What's his name? Carl. Carl is pulled underground into the grave, and it's very obvious now that the evil one was buried in the graveyard and not Crybaby Lane, or they wouldn't be getting taken to this grave, or stuff would be happening around this grave. So, yeah. So it kind of pre-tells the twist there. Anyway. Carl is possessed and is somehow there when the train subsides, and then leads him to this barn where he proceeds to have his brother strip down to his underwear. He got all muddy, so stripped down to underwear, and then the girls start throwing shit at him. And I'm sitting here going, what the hell? I missed the part where he was possessed. So I'm like, this brother is the worst thing in the world. I thought we were doing about ghosts. What is this? He's possessed. But this evil spirit... evil, vengeful spirit thing pulls pranks. What's his big, what's his big plan here? I'm confused. But after this, he steals some clothes from a clothesline and makes his way to the funeral home. Because at this point, after Bennett and Gary were attacked after he took Gary home, Bennett goes to the boys' house to talk to them asked them what they did in the graveyard, but the mom, wanting to stretch out the runtime, says, "No, get away from my boys, get out of here." That's where we get the explanation that her mom's funeral might not have gone the way she wanted, and that's why she's mad at him. It's a stupid fucking reason. And more pushing the plot is that the mom tries to tell the dad to go look for the boys, and he's like, if I do that, blah, 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 blah. And even, like, I should mention that Carl is a wrestling fan, so that's brought up. He even has, like, I just got it. He has a big picture of The Undertaker on his wall. And what is Bennett's role? Undertaker. Isn't that clever? It's clever. Although in 2000, he wouldn't look like that. So, especially by October. So, he came back as American Badass in Armageddon in December, but still, I think he was. Maybe he did. I don't know. He was. And they kept saying the World Championship, not just, you can show pictures, but you can't mention a WWF. You know what I mean? But anyway, so. He goes to the funeral home, and this is where we get the twist that there was a mix-up of the bodies, and the bad twin was buried in the graveyard, and the good twin was buried in Crybaby Lane. This seems like something that the kids that Andrew should have came to the realization of, that they made a mistake, because Bennett then tells him that he was the one who buried the bodies. So, like, if you knew you were burying, you had to, for him to be able to say this to him would be, he knew who he was burying when he buried them, so why would he bury them there? Or he'd be, this is the wrong one. Or did he not realize until he went to bury the second twin, whichever one it was like, the other one's already buried, so I might as well just bury this one here. I don't know. There's no real explanation for this. It feels like something the characters, like whoever wrote this, said, we have to have this twist. But instead of having our characters come upon that conclusion and realize it, wait a minute, we were here in this graveyard, and the evil one was the one that was raised. They must have messed up when they buried the bodies. That's what anything would do. That's what an episode of Are You Afraid of the Fucking Dark would do. But here, the writer's like, we have to have Bennett be the one that tells him. But it doesn't make any sense, because if Bennett knew he was burying the wrong bodies in the wrong places, he wouldn't have done it. So it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. And then we get the explanation from Gary, apparently. As he goes to speak to Gary, Bennett does, and you find out that there's roots attached to the hearts, and if you cut the roots, then it frees the spirit. So that's what happened. When they cut that root, it freed the evil one. So he has to go, and he has to cut the good one to release him. At least that's what I thought, but it's very confusing, and I've watched a couple other reviews that explain it a little bit. We'll figure it out here. But then the stupidest fucking thing in the movie happens. So Andrew goes off to find Crybaby Lane. Or, no, he hasn't been told yet. Because after he was told by Bennett pushes him home, the mom shows up. The mom shows up because we got to stretch this thing out to the runtime here. So the mom shows up and takes him away. Takes him home. But he doesn't want to go home because he knows his brother has been possessed. And here I'm thinking the mom's been possessed. But no, she's just a bitch. And the dad's a fucking lazy. So, and so the kid goes to take a shower. Andrew goes to take a shower, and the brother is ready to fucking kill him. I should mention earlier in the film, the older brother, Carl, was just sitting on the toilet while his brother was taking a shower, and I thought, is he taking a shit? No, he's just sitting there, and he flushes the toilet. And there's something I don't understand about that. Like, who designed the water systems in houses where if you flush your toilet when you're taking a shower, it's going to scorch you with hot water? Who does that? That's stupid. Anyway, Not the great one. The rumor was not heartbreaking, it was awesome. Let's talk about the Sami Zayn thing. Anyway, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen my review, because, well, by now it would be out. But anyway, I'm recording it the day after. Andrew runs away, has gotten away, and is running back to the funeral. Meanwhile, when he gets there, after finding out the truth, he gets back to his funeral home. He gets back to the funeral home, and the little kid from the Haunted Mansion is there with his big, that sword. You go like this, and the plastic sword goes like this, and he's like that. And he's saying something about the One Ring. He's been possessed, but he can still only talk about the Lord of the Rings. And he beats the hell out of Frank Langella and takes his ring for some fucking reason, and then takes off. And then Frank Langella sells this as if he had his ass kicked. They explained earlier in the film that this kid was 9 years old. I highly fucking doubt that big ass Frank Langella, who was probably 50 at this point, would be able to get his ass kicked by a 9-year-old. Possessed or not. I get it if he was possessed and he just grabbed his throat and picked him up, sure. But he beat him with a plastic sword. No. And then Andrew shows up and sees him like this, thinks he's dead. I'm going, no, don't be dead. And then his nephew Kenneth, which is Kenneth, just call him Kenny. Kenneth. And he says it multiple times. Kenneth, call him Kenny. Why would you? There's certain longer names that you shouldn't that need nicknames. Like Kenneth, call him Ken or Kenny. Right? It's like Lawrence. Just call him Larry. But Kenneth, Kenny. I'm going to call him Kenny from now on. So Kenny is an idiot. And he thumps his uncle in the head. He's like, don't do that again. Worked. And then basically Bennett tells Andrew what he has to do. He has to cut the vine. Supposedly, from what I got, is to release the good spirit so he can stop the evil spirit, but I don't know. And then he passes out again, or dies, or I don't know. And he's like, I gotta get the Crybaby Lane, but I don't know how to get there. Kenny says he knows how, and then when they're driving, he's like, do you know where you're going? Going where? Crybaby Lane. Do you know how to get there? No. At one point, I was hoping that Kenny was possessed, but no, he's just a fucking idiot. And then a Combine guy shows up and crashes into Kenny's car. Andrew finally finds the fucking graveyard. But it doesn't matter, because as soon as he gets there, he's transported to the actual graveyard. And it's like, what was the whole point of that? Also, he fights off a bunch of girls, including one who he had never seen before. She's just here with Debbie or something, I don't know. She's just there. And then he's transported to the other grave, and then into the ground, and then he just cuts. He sees the evil. Is it his possessed brother, or is it supposed to be the evil twin? Thought we were led to believe they died when they were babies. So how is this guy all grown up? I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be not Gary, Carl. That was supposed to be Carl. I don't know. But he cuts the root as dirt's falling on him for some reason. He cuts the root, and it's daylight. It seems like he's gonna die, but he just wakes up on top of the grave, and he's back. He's back at Crybaby Lane again. What? And the girls are there, and they're all nice to him. And there's one girl that he gives a flower, and yeah. And then Carl apologizes to him, but not really, because he's like, if you're 21, I apologize to you. I will deny it and then rip your throat out. Okay, but you still haven't apologized. And he's like, I accept. I'm like, accept what? He hasn't apologized. He just said if you tell anyone he apologized to you. He has not apologized yet. Who wrote this? And then all of a sudden, this was framed as a story being told by Frank Langella to Andrew and his now girlfriend. And then Carl is with the Lord of the Rings kid? I don't know, but after all these years of speculation as to why this thing never aired again, I think it's just because it sucked. To be honest, I feel like they aired it once, it didn't do anything to the ratings, so they never aired it again. And they tried to keep it buried because they knew it was bad. But people kept wanting to find it, and yeah, my rating is it's not frustrating to the point where I want to say it should fry it now, but I was gonna say it's not worth your time, okay? Because it's just no. Frank Langella is the best thing in it, and he's criminally underused. The rest, like, I generally hate the kid who plays Andrew. One, he screams too fucking much. How many times I'd hear throughout the damn movie? Stop it. Stop it. And the whole twist of them being buried in different graves could have worked if not delivered by the guy who dug their graves and would thus know which ones he's putting in. And if he knew that they were wrong, why did he continue to bury them? It's something the characters should have come across themselves. So yeah, it's just not worth your time. All right? All right. Enough of that shit. We are now going to go back to the worlds of Rugrat, the universe of Rugrats. We're going back to Rugrats. And I'm going to learn how to speak English. Okay? We're going to go back to Rugrats. And this time we're going to Paris. So what are your thoughts on Crybaby Lane in the comments? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.